Welcome to Earth's Mightiest Weirdos. If you are joining Earth's Mightiest Weirdos and you're here every week, you are looking at a lot of faces you may not recognize. But right below me, you do see one face that you recognize, Alex Klein, making his return from talking about, it was the finale of Loki, correct? That's when
it was, yes.
Welcome back, Alex. How are you doing tonight?
Thanks. Great to be here. Glad to be here and glad to be well.
And joining me to my right-hand side, yes, I did it right this time, Anthony. Anthony is a patron of this Diz Life podcast. So first and foremost, thank you so much, Anthony, for the support there. Anthony joined us on United We Fan this week as well, so we're getting to hear a lot of him. How you doing tonight, Anthony?
Doing all right. How about you?
I'm hanging in there. It's I'm very excited for this show, and I'm very nervous for this show. So we'll tell our audience now we are very reliant upon you guys, or else you're going to hear a lot of four guys just riffing about the MCU, which might go okay too, but you never know. And then joining us, celebrating the 33rd anniversary of the trade of Wayne Gretzky to the Los Angeles Kings, is Mr. Jim Scroggs. How are you, Jim?
Hello, Internet. We're about to get weird.
Jim's ready to be one of Earth's Mightiest Weirdos. Well, thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to pull this up right now. We do want you to call into the show if you would like to give us your MCU hot take. What would you change in the MCU if you could make a change in the MCU? I am new to taking calls on this show, so we will see how it goes. I'm going to pull that down for a little bit. We're going to talk about kind of what's going on in the world of Marvel right now. Alex, they are not slowing down any sort of marketing campaign for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is due out in about 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, don't remind me. I've been doing a really great job of scrolling past all of those advertisements as they come on. I mean, how many different ways can you say your family's legacy is following you forever? Like, we get it. Trust me. I'm going to go see the movie. Don't worry. I'll be there opening night.
This is kind of the second movie in a row where they're doing kind of that same marketing campaign too. I had to turn off Twitter alerts for Marvel Studios like when Black Widow came out because I saw it on opening night. I don't need the reminder to see it any more times. But I mean, Jim, are you excited at least for Shang-Chi? Are you excited to see it?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm looking forward to just because it is a new avenue in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not only are you bringing in like Kung Fu, you're also bringing in mysticism that we've got a little taste of for the most part, but this type of it, as well as seeing what the Mandarin will look like. Because obviously you automatically think of Iron Man 3, and then the one shot on the I can't remember which DVD it was on, to be quite frank with you. But yeah, it's definitely going to be something that's I'm looking forward to. I'm sure we all are. And yeah, of course they're going to hype up the marketing just because, frankly, we don't know exactly how we're going to see this film.
Yeah, that's something that makes me a little bit nervous. There is a Disney investor call on Thursday afternoon, and I think the one shot you were talking about, All Hail the King, I think it was on Thor: The Dark World, if I remember.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But Trevor Slattery is always here, joining us in spirit.
Well, I panicked, but then I handled it.
Anthony, I mean, they have said in the past that Shang-Chi is going to get a 45-day exclusivity. We were discussing this earlier today. It'll be kind of a bummer if they turn Shang-Chi into the quote-unquote sacrificial lamb to prove that Premier Access is really what they need. Suicide Squad had a really bad performing weekend at the box office, and I think the Delta variant is to blame for that just as much as anything else. What do you think, Anthony? Do you have an opinion on what they may do? Do you think they might actually go Premier Access?
I think they're going to. I mean, I think they're going to have to, because of all movies, you don't want Shang-Chi to be that sacrificial lamb, like you said. And I think even the second week box office numbers is a huge drop. I think it's been, like 65% drop from the first week.
The 8%, yep.
Yeah, and when you're not making the $75 million that you hope to be, you're not going to be making any money on week 2. So I think and hope that they're going to end up going to Premier Access. I'm still going to go see it in the theaters, but hopefully everybody will get a chance to see it as soon as they can.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm excited for that movie, but we've got more Marvel Studios news coming. We talked about it last week that Hawkeye is going to be the next Disney Plus series after What If. That's going to premiere on November 24th. We've received not official confirmation, but basically a confirmation that Miss Marvel is going to come right after that. Can't imagine it's going to make its debut in 2021. But we get 10 weeks of What If, and that begins this coming Wednesday. Technically drops Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. Eastern time. Jim, how excited are you for What If?
I'm pretty excited. It's more of a, how can I put this? I'm excited about what all the possibilities are, because I know for the first 2 episodes, it's going to be Captain Carter. And the second one is going to be centered around Iron Man and Killmonger. Is that correct?
I think T'Challa and Star-Lord is the second episode is what
that's
I heard.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the possibilities are literally endless, and it's going to be something that we, at least from my standpoint, I'm sure you guys are a lot smarter than I am. I'm trying to wrap my head around all the different possibilities. I mean, seeing Spider-Man, because that's my favorite character, seeing him sport the the cloak of levitation is something I never thought I would see, a concept that I never thought was even possible, because I mean, I just don't think of Strange, and even though a lot of the stuff is done by the same artist, Ditko, Strange and Spider-Man I've never saw that pairing as something that I would be interested in. But now I'm like, yes, this is going to be incredible. It's going to be fantastic. And like I said at the top of the show, let's just get weird, man.
Well, we're using our made up names. Okay, well, I'm Spider-Man then. Anthony, excuse me, Alex, I want to get your opinion on something Anthony said on United We Fan that'll drop this coming Wednesday, which was a lot of fun to record. We gave our fantasy baseball teams. We used fictional baseball characters and made a baseball team. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, wow.
Lots of Ham the Babe Porter from the Sandlot. But Anthony said he wasn't actually that excited about What If when it was originally announced, because it was announced that it was non-canon and that it was just simply going to play with the construct of the What If comic book. Now, following Loki, it's been confirmed that Brad Winderbaum, who's an executive producer on the show, has said as much, that it's exploring that multiverse. Did that make this show up your anticipation a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I was in that same boat. What If excited me just because I am a pretty big fan of animated things, but the fact that it wasn't canon, and also knowing that it was like movie show, I was like, okay, if there's one thing I'm not looking forward to, it's probably What If. But as things started rolling, we started seeing the clips and hearing that, it got me way more excited, especially too, didn't they announce that there's a second season eventually coming?
Is it officially announced? I think it's kind of like the Loki one where we kind of knew it was coming. But
yeah, and whether it's official or not, just the fact that they're even talking about it just tells me that they have a lot of content to share, and that, like, kind of like what Jim was saying, like they definitely were like, okay, what's the weirdest thing you can think of? And they were like, wow, we have a lot of items. We might as well make a couple seasons of this. So with that in mind, that makes me really excited for it.
They've given hints that Captain Carter's storyline is going to play out over multiple seasons. So
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. So the interconnectivity of episode to episode is what I'm very interested in, having that interconnection where each episode actually builds upon. I don't know how you do that without setting it on one specific timeline. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but I'm very, very interested. Anthony, again, you said you weren't that excited about it. Now you're kind of coming around. Is there any specific one character that you're excited to see, other than hearing Chadwick Boseman back as T'Challa for reportedly 4 episodes?
There's not. And since this is the Hot Take-a-thon, I might as well just go ahead and start it by saying that I don't know, guys. I want to be excited for the show. I'm just not yet. I feel like I will be. I know our friend Maya is here, and I know she was not excited for Loki, and now I think it is one of her favorites, at least character-wise. So, you know what? I trust in Marvel. I believe them, but I just need them to I don't know. I need to see it for myself. And the only thing that I'm curious about, if it will ever happen, and I don't remember the source. I hope it was We Got This Covered, because I know that's your favorite, Bryan.
Oh my God.
I know they're right up there with the Hollywood Reporter and Variety. I mean, basically just like close cousins, I'd say. But I did see the possibility of Peggy Carter coming to live action as Captain Carter. So, I mean, if any of that stuff does happen, that'll be cool to see, whether it be in an episode of Loki or whatnot. But we'll see.
Alex, was that her in the first episode of Loki coming through that time door?
I did not catch that the first time I watched it, but I've obviously watched that episode so many times since and have caught it every time. And every time I'm like, is it really her? I mean, it kind of looks like her, but I feel like, I don't know. I mean, if they don't ever follow up with it, it's not going to be that big a deal. Plus, it's not even like the Captain Carter anyway, right? It would have just been a Peggy who I guess shouldn't have signed Steve up for some other thing or something.
Signed Steve up for the VA for.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, gentlemen, as Anthony said, it is the Hot Take-a-thon. Again, we are reliant upon you, the audience. We'd love if you put them in the comments. We'd love it even more if you called the phone number there along the bottom and gave us your hot take so we can react to it. We do have one sitting in the voicemail, so we are going to play that one right now for the group, and we will react to it.
And here is my what if hot take. I want to hear you discuss, what if Tony created the Iron Man suit and then died and Rhodey had to take over? So Rhodey is Iron Man. There's nothing else that Rhodey has done, and nothing else that Tony did would have been done. So have fun discussing that one. Can't wait to listen. Thanks.
So David wants to know, what if Tony died and Rhodey took over? So Terrence Howard lives on in the MCU at least a while longer. But Jim, you're nodding along like this interests you. I'd love to hear what you're thinking right now.
Well, when does he die? I think that's a valid question.
So he develops the suit and then dies. So pretty early on. Let's say Obadiah Stane takes him out.
So, okay, Obadiah Stane takes him out. I think that's the end of Iron Man.
You don't think Rhodey can carry it on quite the same way?
Yeah, he's easily like the better pilot. Like, that is not even debatable. But think about what all Tony did, especially in Iron Man 2. He literally destroyed his house just to create another arc reactor. Rhodey's smart. I just don't know if anyone, frankly, short of, well, God, I don't think anyone could have come out short of Rocket Raccoon could have come up with that.
That's a good point.
It's fair. I mean, there was one single way out of 14,605,000 that they defeated Thanos, and that was because Tony Stark lives. So we'd have a bit of an issue there. Alex, does this intrigue you at all?
It does, but I have a feeling, in my fantasy land, this is what's coming down the pike, and I don't think they've confirmed yet if Armor Wars is coming out before or after Ironheart. But in my headcanon, both of those shows are going to be dealing with who the next Iron Man is. And so in a sense, David's already getting what he asked for, because Iron Man died, and that show, the Armor Wars show, is Rhodey in a sense taking over. We don't know what's going to happen, but why not it be him, getting in a suit and flying around and realizing, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought, even though he already was War Machine. But I feel like maybe there's a lot of threads that would be answered within the Armor Wars show.
You hear that, David? You asked for Iron Man to die. That's what Alex just put on your head.
And I would be curious to know if Rhodey would ever feel, and depending on when this takes place, if he would ever feel like Sam, like taking up the mantle of Captain America and not feeling comfortable in America representing the country, if Rhodey would ever feel that way, especially if it's like at the very beginning, he's going to be Iron Man and the face of it. So
he kind of did that already, though, right? In Iron Man 3, when he had the Iron Patriot armor, because that was the red, white, and blue armor as well, right? Or are you thinking in a different context of like what it means to be Iron Man?
Yeah, I'm thinking in a different context. Cool. Assuming that if he gets taken out early on, then. But what do I know?
With all the cheaply made eye movies around all the high schools around the country, thanking Iron Man for his sacrifice and all that kind of stuff, like it would be pretty big shoes to fill. I think Riri Williams is going to be a good. I'm curious, Alex, you're onto something with Armor Wars and Ironheart kind of taking that up. I'm not interested in Spider-Man No Way Home spending a lot of time trying to replace Iron Man. I think they've got too many other things that they're going to be balancing in that movie. A lot of Far From Home dealt with what are we going to do without Iron Man. I hope we don't spend a ton of time in Spider-Man 3 dealing with that. I would love to deal with that more in Armor Wars and Ironheart. So you're definitely on to going to do without Iron Man. So, I hope we don't spend – that's my fault. I'm trying to click out of something, and I clicked into something.
Is it your first day?
It is not. So we are waiting on some people to call in or to join us here in the studio to give us their hot takes. But let's get us going with our hot takes. Anthony, you said you had a couple. I would love to hear one of your hot takes about the MCU.
Okay, one of my hot takes is that if Marvel Studios does not hire James Gunn to direct Guardians of the Galaxy, we don't get everything that we've gotten so far. I think that Guardians was so out there, and the fact that he made a talking tree and a raccoon household names, that if anybody else helmed that and it flopped, I don't think that the MCU makes it to the 24 films and 3 TV shows that we've got so far.
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I think especially introducing Thanos just as kind of that interwoven, this is how it fits into the MCU, is how they pulled it off. They needed to go weird, and I think that was their excuse. I do not hate that. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is no spoilers and not to get into DC, but how good Suicide Squad was under him. I mean, it's, there's
just in general
people saying
compare it to the rest of the DCEU.
Just compared to the rest of the DCEU, I mean, Suicide Squad was great. I mean, you can definitely see as people are saying, the Marvel linings within it, just because it's funny. There's action, and it's not just dark. And I think James Gunn is huge. So
yeah,
I think without him, we're not getting everything that we're getting.
Yeah. Alex, do you agree with that statement?
I do. I think it's not like a common statement, but I feel like when you think about it, you're like, it's so obvious, because you could argue that, without Joss Whedon, none of this would be possible because of the Avengers. But I would argue what you're saying, Anthony, because the Guardians is essentially the same. It's another team up movie, but the difference being, there's no build up to it, right? Like they're all a team right away in the movie. But not only that, you get the great soundtrack. You get the Thanos, so you can see like Marvel going, this is how you make a standalone movie that's also sort of connected and has threads, but can be all by itself and is totally weird. And you can see them doing that in all of these other movies. I mean, look at the soundtracks on non-James Gunn movies. There's other ones too that like the soundtracks got progressively better throughout the MCU after Guardians.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I love that they did do a little bit of the awesome mix in Suicide Squad, starting out with Johnny Cash, but they didn't overdo it either. It wasn't
right.
Super. Jim, do you agree that James Gunn did that much for the MCU?
Yes, I do, and in fact, that can kind of transition to my hot take regarding the MCU.
Ooh.
If you don't mind me taking over for a second.
Go ahead. I'm going to bring up our next special guest, but go ahead and go for yours right now.
The best character arc in the MCU to date is Nebula.
Whoa, okay. That's interesting.
Because think about it. Starting off how she did, she was literally trying to do anything and everything to please Thanos. Obviously in Guardians 1. Guardians 2, she kind of takes a bit of a pirate role, I guess. That's the only word I can think of off the top of my head, trying to get with the Ravagers and eating unripe fruit. But in that film, we got the answer that Nebula wanted in regards to Gamora, her sister. All she wanted was a sister. And then seeing the development from that to Infinity War, talking to herself, I'm you. This is what happens when you get out of underneath the thumb of Thanos. You can do some good with her life. Granted, she didn't say that, but that's how I understood it. And I mean, look at one of the last scenes in Endgame. She's literally on the ship with Thor and the Guardians and ready to play ball with them.
Yeah.
I mean,
Spoiler alert.
Listen, if you haven't seen one of the biggest movies in the world's history, I got nothing for you.
After 2 years
After 2 years.
But bringing up that I'm you scene when she's talking to herself, like you reminded me of a meme I saw online yesterday that said buffalo wing or boneless buffalo wings down to chicken nuggets, and it says you're weak, and it just says I'm you.
Listen, I'll eat some boneless wings just because you're right. The hotter the better. But I'm from Atlanta, so we prefer our chicken wings with bones.
All right. Well, I will officially welcome in our first guest, and that is Ms. Jalen. How are you doing tonight, Jalen?
I'm doing good. Doing good. How about all of you?
You got dressed up for the evening. That's a good look.
Yes.
Are you locked in your closet again?
I am locked in my closet where the dogs can't find me.
All right, Jalen. Well, you dislike Thor's blonde eyebrows from Thor 1. I used that to tease this episode, but let's hear what you have to say.
Yes, I won't go on that rant again. I've done that too many times. But mine for tonight is I love Natasha and Bruce's relationship from Ultron, and I wish we got way more of it.
That is a hot take right there, and I have argued to the opposite side many times. Back yourself up if you would not mind.
Yeah, I think both of them, they just have great chemistry. They're a little like geeky flirting with each other. I love it. And I feel that we didn't get a good closure from like their relationship. It just kind of ended at the end of Ultron, and it didn't really
What do you mean?
continue.
She walks into Avengers compound, says Bruce, he says Nat. Like that gives me all the
I needed more. I needed more.
I'm on your side.
Thank you.
Alex, let's hear why you're on her side.
It was nice just
also-
because I feel like Widow, she was always relegated to like a side character, and I certainly don't like that it was like, oh, she's finally getting an interesting story because she's got a love interest. But at that point in time, I was like, I'll take what I can get to have something like good. And their interactions, especially like when they were at the bar at the Avengers party, were so good. And you're totally right. I mean, I cringed in Infinity War, and Infinity War is one of my favorite movies. But like when he just like paused for like 3 seconds and then was like, Nat, I was like, that's it. That's all we're gonna get from this.
We need more from that. Like you can't just say her name.
By the lake or something like that. We needed a Loki Sylvie type of thing with the two of them. I totally agree.
Do you think he resents her for sending him off in a Quinjet and ending up on Sakaar for 5 years?
I don't think so.
Her, though, was it? Didn't he do that? He did that to himself.
Yeah, he shut down her the lullaby.
That's
so.
true. She was coming to fight. Yeah. I suppose that's true.
You've got Maya all up in arms in the comments over here. Maya's hammering that caps lock right now.
I'm glad I have some backup on this.
Barton's wife was very tuned into this relationship as well. I didn't care for it. I thought it was awkward. I didn't love it. I wasn't looking for it. It just wasn't my thing. I was fine with them only saying each other's names and then never dealing with it again. I think how Bruce actually has to handle it. Well, I mean, at that point, he's Professor Hulk, how he has to handle it in Avengers Endgame, and he deals with it by throwing a bench across the lake. Like that all worked okay for me. I didn't love that relationship. Am I alone in this particular group of 5 people?
No, I didn't even think about it. Honestly, I didn't even think twice about their relationship.
It's
Jim,
so good though.
I'm kind of on both sides here, just because like I understand what they were trying to do. Like 2 people who thought they couldn't love or be loved were, trying to get together. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe they, settled their differences, or they talked about it off screen. I mean, who knows?
You just don't let me care.
It's clear I lose sleep over this. So,
What can I say? I'm a hopeless romantic. Okay.
There's 2 people who feel like they can't be loved, finding love in each other. It was everything, and then it just disappeared, left us hanging. What is love if not just holding on forever.
Yes. So that's my hot take.
That was my attempt at vision. It was very poor.
Rob's dead. Rob's comment.
Rob says maybe the TVA, maybe they did fall in love and the TVA ruined it.
Oh, that dang TVA.
Jalen, we're gonna get a whole what if episode that is what if Nat was treated properly in the MCU. And
yes.
That she's gonna get her trilogy, all that stuff.
Yes, I'm here for it.
Gio says hashtag more MCU romance.
Yes. I don't think it didn't need to be like its own like huge focal point. We just needed more than what we got.
Yeah.
Agreed.
More of an ending.
That is fine. Jalen, I would love to give you 15 seconds to rant about Thor's blonde eyebrows in Thor.
I need way more than 15 seconds. But it could have I probably would like the first Thor movie more if it wasn't for those dang blonde eyebrows. Just doesn't work.
I never even picked up on it until it was pointed out to me, and there was a lot of people that had that same opinion as you. I can't unsee it.
Yeah, it's all you can focus on now.
We all need to get on Twitter and then do hashtag release the Kenneth Branagh cut, where he's got where somebody can go in and CGI his eyebrows to be darker.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get that guy who did the. I saw Lucasfilm hired the guy who did the touch up the facial thing for Luke. Just hire him. Be like, hey, side project, fix Thor's eyebrows in Thor 1, and then we're going to release
Cavill's mustache.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, at that point, like de-aging characters isn't something that Marvel seems to struggle with quite like Lucasfilm does. So, well, thank you so much for joining us, Jalen.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Bye, Jalen.
That was
Bryan. She brings up a really interesting point, and I think Gio kind of as well. That's almost as like a hot take that there really isn't any romance in the MCU, and it's funny because I feel like when the MCU started, that was like a big awesome point because it was like God, every movie there's always the love interest, and that ends up being the pitfall of the main character. And I feel like they just kind of were like, okay, well, we just won't ever do that. And so I feel like there's maybe a couple of romances in the MCU, but I'm like, off the top of my head, I don't think there's any where you're just like, wow, that's like the love of a lifetime sort of thing.
I'm very
Bucky and Sam's sister.
I was rooting for Bucky and Nat at one point because they're about as damaged as each other, but obviously Nat's no more.
Hulk, I am all in on Bucky and Nat's sister.
Oh,
Same
Bucky and
sister.
Elena? That would be sick.
Oh,
Okay.
Nat's sister.
Yeah. Bucky and
that'd be
Elena.
cool.
Like, even if Sebastian Stan and Florence Pugh just got together, like they would make superhero. I'm very curious to see where they go with Thor: Love and Thunder and the relationship that Thor and Jane have. How much of it's going to be romantic versus just Jane has cancer and Jane is basically wielding the power of Thor, and what that's gonna result in. Alex, if you had to guess, do you think we will see Jane Foster in What If? Do you think they're going to use any of What If to reintroduce characters that people may have forgotten about, or is that simply what Marvel Studios Legends is for?
Yeah, I mean, if they really wanted to get people excited about Jane Foster Thor, then they should, even especially do like just a tease, like do not make a whole episode of it because then, whatever. But even in the comics, Jane and Thor during that run, they really weren't romantic with each other until that like very end of it. And it was more of like a, I don't want to spoil it, but it wasn't in any way of like, oh, there's going to be a romance now. Like they were at that point where they were past the relationship. Like they had it, they'd been on again, off again. And it was like, now we're just, best friends, basically like family sort of thing. So yeah, maybe a little bit, but if not, then just save it for Love and Thunder. Cause if they do, and that moment when she shows up I'm going to lose my mind if I haven't seen any, clips prior.
You will.
Unless you avoid it, because Marvel is going to give them to us. That's going
to be the clip.
That seems to be pretty obvious. Blurred Hulk from Walt's Apartment Podcast is joining us. He says Thor's eyebrows was almost as big of a focal point as the David Banner TV Hulk eyebrows. That's pretty good. Thanks for joining us, Blurred Hulk. All right, I want to entertain this one we got in the comments. What if Steve Rogers never loved Peggy Carter? What would be his story after Endgame? So let's say that love, that kiss that he has with Marjorie Tyrell in the bottom of the basement. I do not know her name. All I know is I would love if that actress had played Carol Danvers. I think she would look great as Captain Marvel.
That's Natalie Dormer.
Natalie Dormer. Thank you so much. I did know that, and I just didn't even think about it. She's Marjorie Tyrell. But Jane, or I almost called you James. Your name is Jim. Jim.
You're not wrong. My name is James.
I know. What if
I've been called Jim my whole life?
What if Steve Rogers never loved Peggy Carter? What is his story after Endgame? I'm of the opinion he never makes it to Endgame.
He doesn't make it to Endgame in the form we know him as, if that makes sense. Okay, so I think he makes it, but that drive and that, especially, it makes, and the scene I'm talking about is from Winter Soldier. I cannot watch it. He's talking to Peggy. She's talking to him, and then she just forgets him. Anyone who's dealt with someone with Alzheimer's, dementia, or you call it, whichever form that you have, I can't watch that scene. I don't think the form that we know as Steve Rogers lifting the helmet, about to face Thanos, that's not the version we see in Endgame. I think we see a version of Steve Rogers who may have been a little bit more. How can I put this? It would have been with a dash of with Bucky, kind of like who's willing to, who's willing to maybe kill or not really have that moral high ground. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that Peggy Carter really loved him as Skinny Steve for who he was, and didn't see the godlike figure coming out of Howard Stark machine.
No matter how much he patted his chest, but as evidenced as she had a picture of Skinny Steve on her desk in 1970.
Exactly. I think Steve Rogers Captain America makes it in Endgame, but the version that we see in Endgame is not that. It's he's probably been influenced a little bit by Tony, because maybe he has a little bit more cynicism in him.
Yeah, I've seen the argument, and this is not the same argument, but I've seen the argument that Steve really did the Avengers dirty by going back in time and basically abandoning his post. I don't think that that's fair at all. The man's lived a very, very long life, and he kind of deserves to be a little bit selfish. Alex, how do you think, or no, let's go up to Anthony. Anthony, do you think Steve is any different in Endgame if he didn't have love as one of his motivations?
Yeah, go ahead and go to Alex, because I can't say anything better than what Jim just said.
Like, if you have anything to add to what Jim said, it was pretty eloquent.
No. I mean, if we do get the same Steve that we do get in Endgame, I think he just retires. I mean, I think ultimately he did retire, but I don't think he necessarily comes back as old Steve. He just does the job, comes back, and then retires and does whatever he wants to do. So
think about it as, even from the standpoint of, we don't get Steve's not moved in Civil War by the statement of stand like a tree, no, you move. Like, those words from Sharon Carter don't resonate with Steve if it's not coming from Aunt Peggy. Like, I mean, even that might not motivate Steve in the same manner.
If I can add something to that real quick, I think Steve that comes back in Endgame is actually Skinny Steve and not Old Man Steve. Because if it's Skinny Steve, he may have gone back to try to find Peggy and try to not to say make her fall in love with him, but because I legitimately thought when we saw that person on the bench, I 1,000%, oh, that's Skinny Steve. That's the core of what who Steve Rogers is. So I think
dancing, and he's significantly taller than her. Exactly.
But I think if, going back to the question, the version that we see, I don't know what that sound is, but that's really distracting.
Must be
the version.
We're getting
the version we see in Endgame is Skinny Steve, because he probably would have gone back, not to necessarily put the stones back, but I think he would have gone back, try to find Peggy and start over, because he knew what happened, so he would try to recreate that.
Okay.
Sorry,
sent the caller
I don't-
voicemail.
I'm
Goodbye.
doing a bad job. He was going to leave us a because I ignored his call apparently.
I apologize to whoever just called. I should not have rambled on like that.
No, that was completely my mistake. I have the website open, which is what made it do that. We'll see if he calls again. That was my mistake, or he'll leave us a voicemail.
I was just hoping that was your cell phone number, Brian.
Not actually.
I think we just found out who. I think we found out who just called.
Yeah. Said why you not answer? Yeah.
Why no answer?
That I'm sorry. He can go back. Ethan is the one that left us that comment about Steve. Alex, I'm going to throw this one to you. I do like this one from Shauna. Says, what if Cap gave the shield to Bucky? Seems like Bucky resented Sam. I do not agree with the last statement of Bucky resenting Sam, even though some of what we got in, because if Steve was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me. I don't think that's resenting Sam. I think that's resenting Sam's decision. But what if Cap gave the shield to Bucky?
Yeah, I think, and I totally agree with you. And I'd seen that comment too. I don't think there's any resentment from Bucky towards Sam. And I think the way that they did it in the MCU was a very logical progression forward, because you got to go back and remember that Bucky can't technically, have the shield because he's killed a million billion people and he was a Hydra agent. And we'll pick this up once that
the guy that just tried to call and you ignored my call.
I'm accepting the call. James, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
can you hear me?
There we go. Alex, I'm sorry to interrupt you for just a second. I will work on the phone call thing later, but we'll get back to Steve giving the shield to Bucky. But James, we are ready for you, fresh off of this Diz Live that I was joining.
Continue the conversation, and I will wait until you are done. I don't want to interrupt the flow. Go for it.
Okay. Well, so in the comics, Steve doesn't really give the shield to Bucky. Steve dies, and then Bucky takes up the mantle. And it was during a time when Sam was really not like a big comic book character, so there's no logical explanation to give him the shield. And so I could see it going that way of like Steve dying, and honestly, it's funny, kind of tying it in with the other one. So my thought is if Peggy and Steve never got together, Steve's story we would not have gotten Civil War. I think we would have gotten him waking up from the ice. He still would have taken the plane down, even though he's not talking to Peggy because he's a good guy. But then he wakes up and he's doing his missions and he sees that Hydra's absolutely corrupt, or Shield is corrupt. All this, and I feel like he takes down Shield and then says, "I'm done. Like I have nothing to live for at this point." He even finds Peggy and finds out that she died or whatever. And so at that point, I could see Bucky, he saves Bucky, finishes the brain, like fixes him. He goes to Wakanda, and then Bucky takes up the shield. That would make sense to me. But once you've thrown Sam into the mix, it's really hard to argue for Bucky, because Sam is just such a better choice between the two of them when you look at their records. But if he's not around, like I was really hoping, and we kind of did see it, of Bucky, throwing the shield, getting to hold the shield a couple times in the show. He just has so much more baggage to unpack that the story wouldn't be as interesting if every person's like, "Dude, you're a murderer. Why are you wearing the Captain America stuff?"
Yeah, and if we piggyback, and this is what's going to be so interesting about What If in general, if we piggyback episodes, what if Steve never loved Peggy? Bucky never comes back. Like a lot of Steve's drive and love for Peggy is what brings Steve's love for Bucky back and brings him back into the fold and all that kind of stuff. Shauna says, I think if Cap gave Bucky the shield, it would have been a great redemption story. Yes, but America couldn't handle Sam holding the shield, let alone this murderer. Bucky's entire record is on the internet because Natasha put it there. James, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. What hot take do you have?
I'm about to get destroyed for this, probably. Captain America is the most overrated Avenger there is.
Whoa.
Okay. Before I hit the end button, I will let you defend yourself.
You just think about it. It's like he didn't really work hard for anything. He figured that one thing out at boot camp and didn't give it a shot. What one thing?
With the flagpole?
The flagpole.
Was it that flagpole thing or whatever? I don't remember exactly what the thing was. But
when he pulled the pin at the bottom of the flagpole.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. You're forgetting the part where he jumped on a grenade.
It was fake.
I'd forgotten about that, but still.
We'll keep it going. We'll keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, you got Stark who, I'm sorry, my 7-year-old just came out here freaking out, and I don't know what his deal is.
He must not agree with that take.
Really worked hard to build his empire, and, you know, I mean, you know, like, he made himself, you know, even with Spider-Man, like, I mean, yeah, he got bit by a spider, but he, like, you know, really worked hard to make things happen with that. Steve Rogers was given everything, you know?
He's not wrong.
No, he's not.
He's not wrong. I
It's
mean, you got to
interesting.
think.
You're talking about a 1940s character too, though, where, but you know, back then, 1940s, white male, he probably was handed absolutely everything at that time. So it sucks for that concept. But when you think about him living in ice for 70 years, that can't be easy on a brain when he wakes up. So there are some things he went through. I want you to keep going though. I need that. I'm going crazy.
Captain
So I have
America's
no
entitled.
idea what's being said.
You have no idea what is? I'm sorry.
I have no idea what's being said. I can only hear you.
Oh, well, that's my mistake.
So-
They say you're not wrong. I do not know why you can't hear them, and I apologize. But they say that you are not wrong. They're there for you, especially in the 1940s. And Steve, oh, that's interesting. I do not agree. He's also my favorite character. So
Yeah. And I think I know why I can't hear them, but we can talk about that later. So
I am definitely when it comes to it. Thank you so much for joining us, James. I appreciate it. Well, he came to my rescue, and I botched it, but that's all right.
And he dropped a bomb.
That was a bomb.
Yeah.
That was a bomb. I don't know if I'm okay with that. Let's go to the juice box. It says, what if Spider-Man actually turns into a real spider?
Get out. Juice. Get out.
Like Beast Wars style? Can you turn back? Like he can
Is
transform?
is he an anamorph?
There you
I
go.
mean, okay, I've been watching the Spider-Man 94. I think that's what the year was. Animated series on Disney Plus, and I mean, he does turn into a spider at some point. There, a giant monster of a spider. So if they did that with
the big red dog, big, or like how big are we talking?
I don't know.
Like
I mean,
the original It.
Well, Clifford the Big Red Dog is going to be a big bomb, but this was I think it was the third season. Like he legitimately turns into a giant monster spider. Like he's got like this arms on this, 2 arms here, 2 arms here. So if they pulled that off in some way, they may even try that for what if Peter Parker turns into a spider? Because I believe it was during the mutants when the mutants came into the show with the X-Men, and he was trying to figure out with Professor X, like, what is this, like a mutated gene or something? So I mean, the playbook is right there. The playbook's right there to do this
too, though. I think because he like has some experiment where he gets a bunch of extra arms, and then he eventually turns into Spider-Man. I think it's Morbius that actually helps him cure himself. Yeah. He's like he's got the huge spider head and all that.
Yeah. Like I think I've read like an issue like that once, but like I said, like the animated series is so fresh in my mind since I'm watching it. It's like, yeah, like that's 1,000% happen. I would love to see it.
I'm going to rely on Alex and Jim real quick. He said Spider-Man did turn into a spider to give birth to himself. I don't know that reference.
Spider-Man did turn into a spider to give birth to himself. Yeah, I'm going to need some serious references on that one. That seems like a chicken and egg type situation.
I'm definitely not saying that this person is wrong because I have not read everything.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
But
especially Willard Hulk, he knows his stuff. So
can you kick Juice out? Can you kick him out? He's talking about dog-sized, Chihuahua or German Shepherd, Juice? What are we talking here? I mean, this is nightmare fuel.
Werewolf? I've always wanted to meet a werewolf.
No! Don't put me next to a werewolf.
It's Juice, so it's obviously boxer-sized.
Oh,
good point.
You might as well.
He has a pit.
You might as well rename Ace to a. Okay, we are getting sidetracked. Says, I think the MCU is missing an Uncle Ben and or more heart with Aunt May. I do wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I think the joke of Aunt May being super hot wore out pretty quickly. I do like the Easter egg in Spider-Man Far From Home where we have Uncle Ben's suit and Uncle Ben's suitcase going on the trip. I don't necessarily want to see the Uncle Ben thing all over again. I've seen it twice in Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm glad we didn't have to see that. I think now with Tony gone, I don't see Doctor Strange being this father figure to Peter Parker quite the same way. Anthony, do you think Uncle Ben's missing from the MCU?
I don't think Uncle Ben is missing because, like you said, we've seen it twice. We know the story. I do think if Aunt May did have more heart, I could get on board with that. And then to piggyback onto you, I've got a buddy who hates that Spider-Man hasn't had his own movie yet. He thinks that Homecoming is just a ripoff to have Stark in it as well.
3.5.
Yeah. And now he's in the same boat with No Way Home, with Doctor Strange. So,
what about all the other Spider-Man movies?
Huh?
What about all the other 5 Spider-Man movies?
Well, we don't count those. Those are on the.
Oh, right. Okay, sure.
But no, I don't need Uncle Ben again. I mean, unless it's Uncle Ben's rice and dinner.
Ooh.
Maybe a little Easter egg of Aunt May using Uncle Ben's rice. But no, more Aunt May and heart, that's fine. But no, I don't need more. I don't need Uncle Ben. I don't need to see him die for a third time.
I am all for Happy Hogan and Aunt May and their relationship.
You're shipping it?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think a little Happy May works.
Happy May.
More Aunt May, less Uncle Ben. Gio says, I don't mean to see the death of Uncle Ben, but something is missing with Spider-Man in the MCU. Tom Holland and this iteration of Peter Parker is far and away my favorite version of Peter Parker. So I don't know if I necessarily agree with Gio from that standpoint, because I do think that the seek of approval and everything that he had with his relationship with Tony Stark, I think was really, really great when he finds him on the battlefield in Endgame and says, remember that time in space when I got all dusty? Like, just everything about that. He seek Tony's approval. Now with Tony gone, I'm curious to see where that heart's going to come from. But that relationship they built, and really that relationship that they had, is what caused Tony to even research the Mobius strip and solve the entire thing anyway. Alex, what do you think here?
Yeah, I think I was going to call him Uncle Tony, but I would call him Uncle Tony. I think Tony Stark was the Uncle Ben for the MCU, which is good, right? I mean, he was the heart of both of those movies, and I agree with the fact that it wasn't a Spider-Man movie, but the fact that Tony was there and actually played a role to move the plot forward was really smart. And then we get to actually see him die. We see the reaction that Spider-Man has from that, and when he gets blipped away as well. So there's so much heart in regards to that. I really think it may not be Doctor Strange. I could see him being more of like I don't remember the guy's name, but Lewis Stevens had a fun uncle on Even Stevens that would show up, and it was like I don't see him being the fun uncle. I see him being initially like I don't know why your father thrusted you into my lap, but I'll take care of you. And then eventually they become better friends. I almost wonder, though, if because it's Sony, they take the easy road and have there be an older Peter Parker like Tobey Maguire coming in from the Spider-Verse that becomes the Uncle Ben, just like Into the Spider-Verse. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they just pulled the same thing over. No one would care. But that's kind of my take on that.
Go ahead, Jim.
So I've got a couple of things here.
Being your favorite character, I would expect nothing less.
Yes. Okay. So I'm okay with not having Uncle Ben there, to seeing him die for the 80th time. I'm okay with that. I think a simple flashback scene with him talking to Peter about something, not giving him the great power, great responsibility speech, just talking to him about something, I think would be nice. And the actor playing Uncle Ben should be Timothy Olyphant.
Wow, what if they just pulled clips from the first Spider-Man movie of the Uncle Ben from that movie, the guy from Flowers of Algernon? That would be hilarious. They could probably use the same audio.
That would be fun. And technically, there is a way you could still get the Uncle Ben Great Responsibility speech in No Way Home, is if either Andrew or Toby, depending on if this has even happened or not, tells them, my Uncle Ben told me this.
Yeah.
You kind of killing two birds with one stone there.
We lost Anthony for a minute. We'll see if we get him back here. I I mean, you're talking about Timothy Oliphant. You're talking about Lewis Stevens. Like, give me Shia LaBeouf as the old uncle for Peter Parker.
Oh, I don't think so.
I'm
I don't
not
know about that. Shia needs his own solo movie. Actually, he needs a solo trilogy. I'd accept a Disney Plus series as long as Christy Carlson Romano's in it too.
There you go. I mean, that's how we could open up the door to a Transformers.
Yeah, right. You should have said two Bens with one stone.
Yes, you're right. I 100% said that. But guess what? It didn't pop in my head when I said it. So, I mean, I said it. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it that way. But hey, I've only had 2 days off in the last 2 months, so I got nothing up here now.
Jeremy,
sorry. So we need it to if Shia LaBeouf's coming in, he's going to be Mutt. We're tying in Indiana Jones here.
Indiana Jones verse at that point. Jeremy says, "Do we see Spider-Man infected with Venom?" I really hope that Spider-Man No Way Home is setting up the exit for Spider-Man and using the multiverse as an excuse to have Tom Holland exit the MCU. I'm really worried about it. I don't care for Venom much. I mean, it was better than I expected, but that's because I expected I went in expecting absolutely nothing. Venom, Let There Be Carnage is still due out in September, so we'll see there. Alex, do you think that they could be setting up an exit of Spider-Man from the MCU with this film? Do you expect?
Yeah, I thought about that since the first blurb of it being a Spider-Verse movie, just because I'd assumed like if they're working out these little mini deals and they keep doing that, and clearly Sony doesn't want to sell, but maybe they'll do like a trade. And so if my whole thought was always like Tom Holland stays in the SPUMC and then Miles Morales comes over to the MCU. But see, as time has gone on, and that was what I thought literally like Civil War days. And so now that like Into the Spider-Verse has come out, I feel like Sony would rather keep Miles because I feel like he's more lucrative in terms of the fan base. So like I don't know the answer, but I feel like they've got to be setting up something. If they're going to do a Spider-Verse, they're not just going to be like, hey, here's a really great actor playing Gwen Stacy. Here's a really great person playing Miles. And then like you never see them again. Like they're going to get their own movies. It's just whether or not it would be a Sony movie or an MCU movie.
I'm not counting on Nicolas Cage's Spider Noir. Do you expect Gwen Stacy, nor Peter Porker, unfortunately, do you expect Gwen Stacy and Miles Morales to appear in Spider-Man No Way Home?
I do, yeah.
Anthony?
I hope so. I hope for Miles at least.
I hope so with Anthony's answer, considering, and it's a deleted scene, so it's not canon, but Miles was referenced by Aaron Davis, Donald Glover, in Spider-Man: Homecoming. So
that was in the movie. That wasn't a deleted scene.
No, he called, and there's a deleted scene where he calls Miles.
Oh, well then there's even more proof.
Yeah,
he
even more proof in the movie. He says, "I got a nephew who lives in the neighborhood."
Yeah. I believe that I believe Miles has more of a chance of showing up in the MCU than Gwen Stacy. But considering how popular Spider-Gwen is, and especially like Bryan said with what Sony did with Into the Spider-Verse, I fully expect, them to say, okay, you can pick, or Sony or whoever, you can pick two characters, Miles or Gwen, and I think one of the two will be in there. I'm just not quite sure which one.
Actually, I would hope for Silk. She would probably be my number one pick, and I would take her over Spider-Gwen. I just want all of them, but Silk, I want Silk.
Who is Silk? Is it also Gwen Stacy?
No, that's Cindy Moon. She actually got bit. She got bit by the same spider that Peter Parker got bit by. That was during like the original Sin storyline. So she has there's like a really cool thing with them too that I would have loved to see play out on screen of like since they got bit by the same spider, they are biologically attracted to each other. So like when they're close to each other, they like get they get really hot and heavy towards each other, and they don't know why, but it's because of like this weird radio. I don't know. It made a lot more sense in the comic, but it was really funny because they'd be like, "Why is this happening? Why am I having these like? Why do I think that he's good looking?" She would say, and it'd be like, it was really funny. But no, she's super cool. She's a really cool character.
You would give it to the Peter Tingle.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. In Homecoming, there's an actress, an Asian.
Yep.
She was Cindy, so a lot of people were like, "Boom, there it is."
They thought that's what it was too, yeah. So like again, they've set these stones in place if they want to use them. It's honest. It feels like it's just up to Sony to be like, yeah, fine, you can say that. You can.
Well, and I read that Amazon is working on a TV series about Silk.
Cool.
Yeah, that's right.
Why is Amazon
I
even
forgot
getting
about that.
involved?
Well,
How'd they
Sony.
get that?
Well, Sony.
They own
Sony.
Sony, or it's
No,
with Sony.
they-
No.
Like it's like a partnership,
Oh,
like
cool.
Yeah.
distributor, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, because I was reading the other day about how Marvel can use Spider-Man in the What If series, and apparently Sony has rights on Spider-Man in TV if it's more than 44 minutes.
I thought it was just simply live action versus animated.
Yeah.
No, apparently. So this is reading. Sony has the rights to animated TV shows where the episodes run more than 44 minutes. But since What If is only half an hour, they don't have to worry about it.
I assumed it was just animated versus live action. Well, if that's the case, then just give me a Tom Holland Disney Plus series and make sure the longest episode is only 43 minutes.
There you go.
I'd be all for. I'd be all for that. But Disney's not shying away from Miles Morales or Spider-Gwen either. Just this past Friday debuted on, and it is on Disney Plus. The short film versions are, but there's a Disney Junior show called Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and it follows Peter Parker, Miles Morales, and Gwen Stacy. Those are the three recurring characters in every single episode. It's definitely for children. If you wanted to check it out, you need to access it through Disney Junior channel or the Disney Now app. It's a really, really fun show for kids, but putting Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy in front of kids at that age, I mean, there's got to be some sort of plans for Miles and Gwen Stacy somewhere within Disney. I would think. I don't know.
Cartoon wise, they've been doing, and I haven't watched them, but I've been following them. Like they've been doing that for years. Because didn't they do a whole Spider-Verse thing like before the Spider-Verse in the cartoon? That was Disney. That was Disney and Marvel too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's some shorts on Disney Plus, and Miles is in quite a bit of those.
It was in the I think it's the Ultimate Spider, because there's two on there. There's Spectacular Spider-Man that's with Drake Bell as Spider-Man. I don't think it's that one. I think it's like the Ultimate Spider-Man one.
Yeah,
where,
Drake Bell's Ultimate Spider-Man.
That's all okay. Then whatever. I don't think it's the Drake Bell one. Whatever one it is, like they do a whole Spider-Verse thing.
James
The
says
last comment.
Disney Plus to keep it under 43 minutes. The actual content would only be 15.
Stole my joke.
180 credits. That's pretty good. I do enjoy that. Well, gentlemen, we didn't get as much from the audience vocally, but we did get plenty of audience comments. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, friend of the program, Alex, Jim, and Anthony. This will not be the last time that you guys are on Earth's Mightiest Weirdos. Thank you so much for coming out of the bullpen to give me a hand. Alex, what's going on in comics and cinema world?
Currently working on cooking up a Suicide Squad review. I've only seen it once now, so I'm trying to see it again. I'm not going to be doing weekly episodes of What If. I'm either going to do like every 3, or I'm just going to wait till the very end. It was getting a little taxing doing it every single week, but that's about it for me.
Jim, is the sports still alive and well?
Yeah, yes, we are. Obviously with myself and my schedule, which has kind of calmed down a little bit, as well as the Clark and Rico. Shout out to them. We're probably recording on Wednesday because I have a soccer game to work tomorrow night. But yeah, sports is alive and well. We're probably going to talk about this week the stretch that the Braves have coming up and the fact that they're only just 2 games out of first place in a complete miserable situation involving their bullpen, and why Rick Kranitz needs to go.
There you
All
go.
sports too.
From Memphis, huh?
Yeah.
You're too much into your personal life, but you don't live around your favorite baseball team anymore. But now you can subscribe to MLB.tv and actually get it how it is meant to be used.
Yeah, I could, but I'm trying to save a little bit of money because I don't really like supporting Rob Manfred that much right now because he's not good at his job.
That's putting it nicely.
That is a topic for another time. If you do like baseball, listen to the Sports Porch powered by Atlanta. What is it? What is the website?
SportsTalkATL.com. They're great. They're a great group of guys over there. They've got a bunch of Falcons, Braves, Hawks podcasts, and right now we're in the dawn of a new age of Atlanta Hawks basketball.
The fact that the Braves are 2 games out of first place after the break is unheard of. Not for a while, but it has been a little bit. But that AL or that NL East is pretty much of a mess. If you do like baseball, Anthony, tell them about the latest upcoming episode of United We Fan that drops in 2 days.
So we are fantasy casting our lineup and our field. So it was a good episode. There's some laughs. There's some obvious picks. Some surprising picks.
Anthony's ninth in his order, playing left field, is my favorite. Just stay tuned to Disney Plus. That's all I will say. Tune into United We Fan to hear who has Anthony hitting.
Can I guess?
The order. You can.
Smalls.
Smalls got a mention, but no. I don't think you would guess this one.
No.
I know for a fact Jim has seen it.
Okay.
Jim has commented on it.
Did you pick any of the characters from Twilight?
It's all the fact that I didn't pick any from Twilight. Bryan,
Jasper can crack a homer if you really wanted to.
Scrap it, Bryan.
We've got
to re-record.
I am mad at myself because I didn't put Jim Brockmeyer as my announcer, and now I'm mad at myself because I didn't consider Twilight. One tease for United We Fan: my leadoff hitter is a chimpanzee named Ed that plays third base.
What?
This is terrible.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us on Earth's Mightiest Weirdos for all time.
Always.